Red Hook Warehouse, Brooklyn, September 1962. Bumpy Johnson stood in the center of an empty loading dock, while Carlo Gambino's 8 best enforcers formed a circle around him, each holding a Louisville slugger. No guns. Gambino wanted this personal. But when the warehouse lights went out and came back on 40 seconds later, all 8 men were on the ground, and Bumpy was lighting a cigarette over their bodies. September 22nd, 1962. Bumpy Johnson knew it was a trap the moment his driver turned onto Van Brunt Street. The warehouse district was too quiet for a Saturday night. No drunks, no workers, no stray dogs. Just empty loading docks and broken streetlights that hadn't been broken yesterday. "Keep driving, Marcus," Bumpy said from the back seat of his Cadillac. "Boss, Carlo's expecting you. We're already 20 minutes late." "Carlo can wait." The meeting was supposed to be about territory. Gambino wanted to push heroin through Harlem, using Bumpy's numbers runners as dealers. Bumpy had said no 3 times. This 4th meeting wasn't going to be about negotiation. Bumpy had come anyway, alone, like Gambino requested. No bodyguards, no backup, no weapons. Just him in his Navy suit, gold watch, and the knowledge that Carlo Gambino didn't invite enemies to warehouses to talk. The warehouse was a meatpacking plant that had been closed for 6 months. Perfect for the kind of business that needed concrete floors with drains. Bumpy walked through the front door at 11:47 p.m., his footsteps echoing in the empty space. The smell hit him first, old blood and industrial cleaner. Then he saw them. 8 men standing in a loose circle in the center of the loading dock, not guns in their hands, but baseball bats. Louisville sluggers, brand new, the price tag still on some of them. Each man was known to Bumpy by reputation. Tommy Russo, who'd beaten a man to death in a Queens barber shop. Joey the Tooth Torino, who collected molars as souvenirs. Anthony Scotto, Sal Romano, Petey Black, Dominic Montiglio, Carmine Lombardozzi, and Vincent Vinnie Oil Oliveri. Carlo Gambino himself sat on a shipping crate against the far wall, wearing a black overcoat despite the warm September night. At 60 years old, he looked like somebody's grandfather, until you saw his eyes. Dead eyes. Shark eyes. "Bumpy," Carlo said, his voice soft, almost gentle. "Thank you for coming." "Didn't seem like I had a choice, Carlo." "There's always a choice. You could have run, hidden, sent someone else, but you came yourself. That shows respect. Or stupidity." Carlo smiled. Sometimes they're the same thing. The 8 men tightened their circle. Bumpy noticed they were all wearing plastic over their shoes, the kind of booties surgeons wear, or killers who don't want to leave bloody footprints. "No guns?" Bumpy asked. "Guns are too quick," Carlo said. "Too impersonal. When a man refuses my generous offer 4 times, when he disrespects me by keeping heroin out of Harlem, he deserves a more intimate farewell." Intimate. That's a nice word for beaten to death. You have a way with words, Bumpy. Always have. It's a shame we couldn't do business together. Bumpy reached into his jacket pocket. 8 bats raised immediately. He pulled out a cigarette, placed it between his lips but didn't light it yet. "You know what your problem is, Carlo," Bumpy said, the unlit cigarette bouncing between his lips. "You think fear is power. You think 8 men with bats makes you strong." "Doesn't it?" Carlo asked. Tommy Russo stepped forward first, tapping his bat against his palm. "Boss, can we start? My wife's making Sunday gravy tomorrow. Don't want to be too tired." "In a moment, Tommy," Carlo said, never taking his eyes off Bumpy. "I want to hear what Mr. Johnson thinks makes a man powerful." "Information," Bumpy said simply, "knowing things other people don't. Philosophy won't save you tonight. No, but knowing that Tommy's wife is fucking his brother might." Tommy's face went white, then red. "What did you say?" "Every Tuesday when you're collecting in Bay Ridge, your brother Anthony comes over, stays about 2 hours. Your neighbors have been talking about it for months. You're lying. Red negligee you bought her for Christmas? Anthony bought her the same one. That's why she never wears it for you." Tommy turned to look at the other enforcers, searching their faces. Some looked away. They'd heard the rumors, too. "Tommy, focus," Carlo said sharply. "He's trying to divide us." But Bumpy was already looking at Joey Torino. "Joey, your son, Michael. Good kid. Scholarship to Columbia. Studying to be a doctor. Be a shame if Columbia found out about his arrest in Atlantic City. The one your lawyer made disappear." Joey's grip on his bat loosened. "How do you—" "Or Vincent," Bumpy continued, looking at Vinnie Oil. "That fire in your restaurant last month wasn't an accident, was it? Insurance fraud. Except you didn't know your partner already filed a claim. That's wire fraud now. Federal crime." "Enough." Carlo stood up. "Kill him. Now." But the 8 men hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough for Bumpy to speak again. "I've got files on every one of you. Right now, there's a man sitting in a diner on Flatbush Avenue. If I don't walk out of here in—" Bumpy checked his watch. 17 minutes. He makes 8 phone calls. Tommy's wife gets divorce papers with photos. Joey's son loses his scholarship. Vincent gets a visit from the FBI. Should I continue? "He's bluffing," Carlo said, but uncertainty had crept into his voice. "Sal Romano," Bumpy said calmly. "You've been skimming from Carlo's numbers take. 3% for the last 2 years. You think he doesn't know? He's waiting for it to be worth killing you over. You're about 6 months away." Sal's bat dropped to his side. He looked at Carlo, who was now staring at him with those shark eyes. "Petey Black, your daughter's wedding next month. Beautiful venue. Shame the IRS is going to raid it looking for the $100 grand in cash gifts you're not planning to declare." The circle was breaking. The men were looking at each other now, not at Bumpy. "You're all wondering how I know these things," Bumpy said, finally lighting his cigarette with steady hands. "Carlo's wondering too. How does the Harlem numbers man know about Brooklyn business, about family secrets, about crimes that haven't even been reported?" "Shut your mouth," Carlo said, but his voice had lost its command. "Dominic Montiglio," Bumpy continued. "You've been talking to the FBI, not snitching exactly, just feeling them out. Seeing what kind of deal you could get if things went bad. They've got you on tape from August 15th. Agent Morrison. You remember that conversation?" Dominic went pale. Every man in that warehouse knew what happened to suspected rats. He backed away from the circle, his bat hanging loose in his hand. "Carmine Lombardozzi. Your mistress is pregnant. 3 months. She's 17. Her father's a judge. When he finds out, and he will next week, you're looking at statutory rape charges." "This is bullshit," Carmine shouted, but sweat was pouring down his face. "Anthony Scotto," Bumpy took a long drag. "You're not even Italian. Your grandmother was Jewish. Rothstein, I believe. Your whole life is built on a lie. These men would kill you if they knew. Some probably suspected, but now they know for sure." The warehouse was silent except for the sound of 8 men breathing hard, processing what they'd just heard. The circle had completely fallen apart. Some men had stepped back. Others had turned to face each other instead of Bumpy. "Here's what you're all thinking," Bumpy said, walking slowly through what used to be their circle. "If he knows this about me, what does he know about the others? Can I trust the man next to me? Has Joey already flipped? Is Sal planning to kill me to cover his skimming? Is Carlo going to clean house after tonight?" "Don't listen to him," Carlo shouted. "He's manipulating you." "Of course I am," Bumpy admitted. "But that doesn't make what I'm saying untrue. And here's the real kicker, boys. I've been feeding information to all 5 families. Little bits here and there. Enough to make everyone paranoid. Enough to make everyone distrust everyone else." "You're starting a war," Carlo said, understanding finally dawning on his face. "No, I'm preventing one. As long as you're all suspicious of each other, you can't unite against Harlem. You can't push your heroin through my streets if you're too busy watching your backs." Tommy Russo suddenly laughed, bitter and harsh. My brother. My own fucking brother. Tommy, we got a job to do, Joey said, but his heart wasn't in it. Do we? Tommy turned to Carlo. You knew about my wife, didn't you? You all knew and nobody told me. This isn't the time. When is the time, Carlo? After I beat this man to death for you. After I go home to my cheating wife. The warehouse lights suddenly flickered, just for a second, but every man noticed. The lights, Vincent said nervously. Who's fucking with the lights? I told you, Bumpy said calmly. 17 minutes. We're at 15 now. In 2 minutes, if I'm not walking out that door, things start happening. It's a bluff, Carlo said, but he was standing now, his hand inside his coat. Is it? Bumpy walked toward the loading dock door, passing between the 8 enforcers like they weren't even there. Let me tell you what happens at minute 18. Tommy, your brother gets a phone call telling him you know about him and your wife. He's armed, you know, always carries that .32 you gave him for his birthday. Tommy's face was pure rage, now, but it wasn't directed at Bumpy. Joey, minute 19. Columbia University security gets an anonymous tip about your son dealing drugs in his dorm. They'll find the planted evidence very convincing. You planted evidence on my boy? Joey's voice cracked. Minute 20, Vincent. The FBI raids your house. They'll find the books, both sets. The lights flickered again, longer this time. Kill him now, Carlo screamed. But nobody moved. The 8 enforcers stood there, bats in hand, paralyzed by the weight of their own secrets. Here's the beauty of it, Bumpy said, now at the door. Even if you kill me, the calls still get made. My man has his orders. The only way to stop it is for me to walk out of here and make a phone call saying I'm safe. You think you're untouchable? Carlo pulled out a snub-nose .38. I'll kill you myself. Go ahead, Carlo. But before you pull that trigger, you should know something. Your son Joseph, the one you're grooming to take over? He's been meeting with Lucchese, planning to flip to their family, offering to bring your entire operation with him. Carlo's gun hand trembled. Joseph would never? Tuesday nights, Rao's restaurant, back room. Check for yourself. The gun lowered slightly. In that moment of doubt, Bumpy saw his opening. Gentlemen, you have a choice. Beat me to death and watch your lives explode in the next hour. Or let me walk out, and everybody keeps their secrets. Tommy's wife stays married. Joey's son becomes a doctor. Vincent stays out of federal prison. And Carlo gets to deal with his son on his own terms. 1 minute, Bumpy said, checking his watch. The warehouse was thick with tension. 8 men with bats, 1 man with a gun, and Bumpy standing at the door like he owned the place. 30 seconds. Boss, Sal said quietly to Carlo. Maybe we should. Shut up, you thieving piece of shit, Carlo snarled, confirming he did indeed know about the skimming. 15 seconds. Let him go, Joey said suddenly. My son doesn't deserve to pay for this. 10 seconds. Tommy threw his bat on the ground. Fuck this. I'm going home to deal with my brother. 5 seconds. One by one, the bats lowered. Time's up, Bumpy said, and walked out the front door. The 8 enforcers stood frozen, watching him leave. Carlo Gambino's face was purple with rage, but he didn't shoot. He couldn't. Not with his son's betrayal ringing in his ears, not with his own crew falling apart in front of him. Bumpy walked across the empty lot toward his Cadillac, where Marcus was waiting with the engine running. His footsteps were unhurried, casual, like he was leaving a restaurant after dinner. He could feel 8 pairs of eyes watching from the warehouse windows. Then he heard it, shouting from inside. Tommy's voice. You all knew! Every one of you bastards knew about my wife. The sound of a bat hitting something. Not someone. Something. A crate, maybe, or a wall. Then more shouting. Vincent accusing Sal of being the real snitch. Sal screaming about Carlo's greed. Joey demanding to know who else knew about his son. Bumpy got in the Cadillac. "Drive, Marcus, not too fast." As they pulled away, Bumpy saw the warehouse door burst open. Tommy Russo stormed out, got in his car, and peeled out heading toward Bay Ridge, toward his brother. Then Joey, running to his car, probably racing to Columbia to check on his son. Then Vincent, then Sal, then the others. Within 90 seconds, all 8 enforcers had fled in different directions, each racing to deal with their own crisis. Carlo Gambino stood alone in the doorway, a 60-year-old man with a gun, and nobody to shoot. Marcus drove in silence for 5 minutes before asking, "Boss, how did you know all that? About their families, their secrets?" "I didn't," Bumpy said, lighting another cigarette. Marcus nearly drove off the road. "What?" "Tommy's wife. She's faithful as they come. But Tommy's been paranoid about his younger brother for years. All I did was water the seed that was already there." "And Joey's son?" "Good kid, clean as a whistle. But I knew Joey would believe it because he's always worried his criminal life would contaminate his family." "The FBI? The evidence?" "No FBI. No evidence. No man in a diner waiting to make calls." Bumpy smiled. "Just me, knowing that every criminal's greatest fear is that their secrets will destroy them. I didn't need to know their actual secrets. I just needed to know their fears." "But Carlo's son—" "Wild guess. Every mob boss worries about their children's loyalty. Throw in a specific restaurant, a specific night, and suddenly a guess sounds like intelligence." Marcus whistled low. "So you walked into a warehouse with 8 killers holding nothing but bullshit?" "Not bullshit, Marcus. Psychology. Those men came to beat me to death, but each one was carrying his own guilt, his own paranoia, his own fear. All I did was hold up a mirror. They destroyed themselves." The Cadillac crossed the bridge back into Manhattan, back into Harlem, back into Bumpy's territory. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Tommy Russo killed his brother Anthony that same night, shot him 6 times in his own driveway while Anthony was taking out the garbage. Tommy's wife, Maria, who really had been faithful all along, found her husband crying over his brother's body. When she learned why he'd done it, she left him. The paranoia Bumpy had planted destroyed an innocent family in 3 hours. Joey Torino rushed to Columbia and pulled his son out of the dorm at 1 a.m., demanding to search his room for drugs. Found nothing, of course. But his son, humiliated in front of his roommates, disgusted by his father's lack of trust, cut ties completely. The Dr. Joey had always dreamed of having as a son became a stranger who wouldn't return his calls. Vincent burned down his own restaurant that night, trying to destroy the evidence that didn't exist. The real fire, unlike the fake one Bumpy had invented, brought actual FBI attention. They found the insurance fraud from the first fire, just as Bumpy had suggested they would. Vincent got 5 years federal time. Within a week, 6 of the 8 enforcers were dead, in jail, or in hiding. The paranoia spread like cancer through the Gambino family. Everyone suspected everyone. Sal Ramonto was found in the Gowanus Canal, killed by fellow soldiers who believed he was skimming, which he actually was, though Bumpy's guess had been pure luck. Carlo Gambino did check on his son Joseph's whereabouts on Tuesday nights. Joseph was at Rouse, just as Bumpy had said, but he was there with his girlfriend, not the Lucchese family. Still, the seed of doubt was planted. Carlo never trusted Joseph the same way again. Their relationship fractured. Joseph eventually did flip to the Lucchese family, 5 years later, driven away by his father's constant suspicion. The real masterstroke came a month later. Carlo sent word requesting a meeting with Bumpy, this time in a public restaurant, with lawyers present. The message was simple. Harlem was off limits. No heroin, no interference, complete autonomy for Bumpy Johnson. The exact opposite of what Carlo had originally demanded. "How did you know?" Carlo asked at that meeting. "How did you know exactly what to say to each man?" "I didn't," Bumpy admitted. "I just knew that every man who lives by violence carries violence in his heart, against his brother, his father, his son, himself. All I had to do was suggest the possibility, and their own guilt did the rest." Carlo Gambino never tried to move on Harlem again. When asked why by other family heads, he would only say, "Bumpy Johnson doesn't need guns or soldiers. He has something more dangerous. He understands fear." Bumpy lived another 6 years, dying peacefully of a heart attack in 1968. At his funeral, Carlo Gambino sent flowers with a note. "To the only man who ever beat me without throwing a punch." The warehouse in Red Hook was demolished in 1963, but in mob circles, it became legend. The place where one man with no weapon destroyed 8 killers with nothing but words.